Good evening. When Imran Khan made a call last week to Prime Minister Narendra Modi to congratulate him after his stupendous election victory, the Prime Minister told his Pakistani counterpart in no uncertain terms that India's position was firmly that terror and talks cannot go together. This is a position that India has had since the Pathankot attack in 2016. Now, despite that, Pakistan tried its very best to try and create some sense of false hope around the visit of its Foreign Secretary, Suhail Mahmood, yesterday on the occasion of Eid to the Jama Masjid here in Delhi. India always maintained that Mr. Mahmood's visit was strictly a personal one. Today, the Ministry of External Affairs officially has denied any possibility of a structured bilateral dialogue or even a pull-aside meeting between Mr. Modi and Mr. Khan at the SCO summit next week in Bishkek. A desperate Pakistan wants India to come to the dialogue table. India, for its part, is sticking firmly to its position that no talks while terror is going on. Will Imran Khan finally be forced to walk the talk on terror? That's the question that we're asking tonight on Face Off. But before that, let's listen into what Ravish Kumar, he's the spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs, today in the weekly briefing, he told reporters and scotched all possibilities of any structured meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Imran Khan on the sidelines of SCO.
The visit of Pakistani Foreign Secretary is a personal visit, and there is no meeting being planned with any of the Indian officials. To the best of my knowledge, there is no bilateral meeting being planned between Prime Minister and Prime Minister of Pakistan on the sidelines of the SCO summit. नहीं, मुझे लगता है कि देखिए जो पाकिस्तान की तरफ से हमने रिपोर्ट्स देखे हैं कि काफ़ी कुछ किया जा रहा है, लेकिन ये ध्यान में रखने वाली बात है कि जो वो स्टेप्स कर रहे हैं, जो हमारी जो डिमांड है कि वो इरिवर्सिबल है या नहीं, और ये जो स्टेप्स हो रहा है वो सिर्फ दिखावा के लिए है या जेन्युइन एक एक्शन है टेररिज्म के खिलाफ। हमने बहुत पहले भी देख लिया है, बहुत दूसरे ओकेजन्स पे भी देखा है कि इस टाइप के एक्शंस के बाद कोई उसका फॉलो अप नहीं होता, ये रिवर्स हो जाता है। तो पाकिस्तान को अब जो है दे विल हैव टू वॉक द टॉक, व्हाट दे हैव बीन सेइंग फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम। आई थिंक दे विल हैव टू डू इट नाउ।
All right, Pakistan will have to walk the talk on the question of terror by taking this very, very firm policy, and have been for the last 3 years now. Is India finally forcing Pakistan to address the core issue, and that is the issue of terror that's emanating from that country, targeted at citizens of our country? Let me get in our guest. G Parthasarathy is former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan. Varghese George is Associate Editor with The Hindu. Naren Taneja is spokesperson with the Bharatiya Janata Party. Lieutenant General retired Shankar Prasad is former DG Infantry, and we're also hoping to be joined by Mona Alam, political analyst from Pakistan. So since the Pathankot attack happened, this was in January 2016, India's position has been no terror in talks. Firmly, certainly at the top, no terror in talks. And it seems, at least appears to be bearing fruit, in as much as there is some crackdown that the Pakistanis are undertaking against the likes of a Masood Azhar or a Hafiz Mohammad Saeed. I'm given to understand that Hafiz Saeed was denied or not allowed to address Eid prayers yesterday in Lahore. Are these just symbolic steps that the Pakistanis are taking, or should we give credit where credit is due?
As far as I can see, and I've been reading this for the last 25 years, the Pakistan military is for the first time under pressure.
Okay.
Because of the IMF loan, the Financial Action Task Force pressures and so on. But I don't see any dismantling of its infrastructure of terrorism. They've all been put on hold. And there is another reason, because they're also having serious problems with their own Pashtuns in the frontier province, where the army has acted and in fact arrested against the law a member of parliament. They can't do it. So the army still calls the shots.
Okay.
The politicians are, let's put it, secondary. But that does not mean that we sort of pretend they don't exist. I don't think, I entirely agree that there cannot be a structured dialogue with Pakistan. There should not be. But in such situations, we always have back channels going, so
Mhm.
that we can at least sound out where we are headed and just how sincere they are. They
Okay.
are. So I would presume structured dialogue is out. Don't let us not forget the structured dialogue was resumed in January 2004 after an assurance by President Musharraf
Yeah.
that territory under Pakistan's control will
Will
not be used for terrorism against India.
Well, of course.
So so as long as we actually find the ground situation that way, we can certainly have contacts. I'm certain that nothing substantive will emerge, but there will be due courtesies exchanged.
So Narendra Taneja, next week when Prime Minister travels to Bishkek, to Kyrgyzstan for the SCO summit, clearly the MEA has said there's going to be no formal structured bilateral meeting. There may or may not be a handshake or a photo opportunity, and that's fine. But the problem is that the Pakistanis for the last 6 months have been saying, we are the party that wants dialogue, we are the party that wants dialogue. It's India that's not being flexible enough, or it's being too rigid with its no terror and talks policy. If this goes on for 6 months or another year, what would then stop the Pakistanis from going to the international community and saying that, look, we are the flexible ones, India are the rigid ones?
They sound desperate, it's very clear, very evident. But as for the Prime Minister visit for the SCO summit, it is very clear. That's for, that is a bigger agenda, broader agenda, and the Prime Minister is there more to meet with his counterparts from China and Russia and other countries. That's the agenda, because they're a very important organization, and India is now very active in the SCO in terms of Asia and also in terms of Indo-Pacific, as far as our view and our Asian view is concerned. But when it coming to Pakistan, is very clear, and as MEA spokesman also made it very clear, terror and talks can't go together. That's the Republic of India's policy, and we have been very consistent on this policy for over 3 years now. We tried. We invited the Prime Minister of Pakistan in 2014 to the inaugural and everything, but we all know what happened. But as far as Pakistan going to other countries and trying, I mean, the world knows Pakistan. The entire world, they know it very well, and we are in touch with the global community on these issues. It's not that we are saying no to Pakistan, and we are not in touch with the major powers of the world, or for that matter, the country which are perceived to be very close to Pakistan. We are in touch with practically every important country, or every country that matters to Pakistan also on this issue. So today, the world public opinion, the governments of the world, they understand our view, and they are more or less together with us on this issue. Pakistan must dismantle all these terror camps, and they should do it. They must walk the talk. It's not they say we dismantle today and then you find them again. Next week they're back again. Know this thing. They have to do it, and they have to basically walk the talk. And the world, it's not only India, the world is also watching.
Sure. No, one of the things that used to happen in the past, certainly, Varghese George, was every time there used to be a period of freeze between India and Pakistan, the Americans would come in. Certainly, as a nudge, wink kind of operation. We've seen that when Obama was president. We've seen that earlier when Clinton was president. But now with Trump, and Trump following a very insular, America doesn't care about the rest of the world kind of attitude, is that sort of option also gone for Pakistan? And is that perhaps something that India should use to its advantage to really get Pakistan, to put pressure on Pakistan to once and for all act on this terror conundrum and this terror problem? Because they can't keep running to Uncle Sam.
Yes, I mean, in fact, the Donald Trump administration in the United States has actually come down heavily on Pakistan on the question of terrorism, and the way it has weighed in on the United Nations to ensure that to enlist Masood Azhar as a global terrorist, and on other bodies like IMF, the way United States has used those bodies to bear pressure on Pakistan. All those are actually quite friendly towards India, and in many ways the Trump administration actually echoes India's concerns regarding Pakistan and global terrorism. But that is only one part of Trump's South Asia policy, which we in India quite naturally get to emphasize on those points. But a parallel process that we have to notice is what the Trump administration is doing in Afghanistan. In this month, this very month, the special envoy for Afghanistan will be meeting the Taliban leadership again. And he is on record seeking Pakistan's help to nudge the Taliban towards a more reasonable negotiating position. So when we are almost at a euphoric level, when we appreciate Trump's Pakistan policy, which has been very harsh on Pakistan, it is said publicly many times, he's been blistering in his attack on Pakistan for not condemning global terrorism originating from its soil. And also the question of the question that we discussed a little while ago, Pakistan's usual tactic of one step forward and two steps backward on dealing with terrorism. President Trump himself has personally called out Pakistan on all those issues.
Okay.
While India should be very happy and be excited about what Trump administration is doing, we should also be mindful about his determination to withdraw the U.S. troops from Afghanistan before he faces the U.S. electorate in 2020.
General Shankar Prasad is also joining us. I mean, there are multiple pieces here. Clearly, what Trump calling out Pakistan publicly. So I remember the famous New Year's tweet where he was, he publicly ridiculed the Pakistani administration and called out their double standards on terror. Verghese George outlined what's happening in Afghanistan, and clearly Afghanistan is an important piece of the puzzle as far as Donald Trump is concerned. The other big problem and the other big conundrum, of course, the other big player in the room is China. And what's happened in the last month or so is that the Chinese have, and this happened bang during the election campaign, removed the technical hold on Masood Azhar. And everybody on this panel will agree that if there's any country which may have some amount of leverage with Pakistan today, it's China. Could the Chinese play the role that the Americans played some years ago? Could the Chinese turn around and say that, look, we lifted this technical hold, this was an important concern for you, this man is now blacklisted, now kindly see if you can engage with this country, which is our, as they quote them, fair weather friend?
Well, Zaka, let me make it very clear. I am reminded of what the Prime Minister said soon after the Uri incident nearly 2 years ago. And he said that the tactical responses are given by the military, and I am working on a strategic response which is very time consuming and take a long time. This is some kind of visibility of the strategic response that the country has now been trying to put across to sort out the problem with Pakistan. You will see now that Pakistan has been hemmed in from all corners, whether it's the Americans or whether it's the Chinese, you have just said, or Masood Azhar issue, whether it is the issue about Pakistan Prime Minister saying that I want to meet the Prime Minister and congratulate him, etc., and also to say that the military has agreed to reduce their budget. All of these signals that you're getting are indicative of the fact that the strategic response that's been worked is showing some results, and we cannot back out from it at this moment. The enemy, and I'm using the word very carefully, the enemy is now getting hemmed in from all directions, and we cannot let go and cannot have any walk the talk at the moment. Look at what has happened in Kashmir today. There is a guy brandishing pistol and shouting the slogans in respect of Lashkar-e-Toiba. What happened? Just merely saying that Hafiz Saeed didn't leave the Eid prayer means nothing. What further action has been taken against Hafiz Saeed? We have enough intelligence reports to say that 45 to 50 launch pads are just waiting across the line of control to infiltrate militants this summer. That activity is very much there. What are we to talk about all of these things when he is wanting peace? The unfortunate part is, as Partha said, that the Pakistan army is still calling the shots. The Chinese certainly have a leverage, but the Chinese have to also understand that our strategic response dictates to us that we must take it to its finality, which means Pakistan must stop terror against us. And China must understand that their actual long-term gain starts and lies in India. Look at the economic relationship that Chinese are wanting to develop.
Mona Alam is also joining us. And Mona, there are these 3 or 4 things that have happened in recent times, all of which point towards a certain desperation on the Pakistani side. One, of course, we know what the situation economically is with the IMF, the bailout and so on, how stretched Pakistan financially is. 2, just recently we've seen the Pakistan army go out and, 2 senior military officials, I think one was a brigadier, the other was a general level officer, who one of them was ordered to be sentenced to death and the other sentenced to life for espionage. You have an American president who's publicly, virtually every other week, calling you out for the double standards on terrorism. The Chinese don't seem to be in any great mood to back you. Certainly they lifted the technical hold on Masood Azhar. Is it correct that Pakistan is being hemmed in from all sides and therefore feeling the pressure, and perhaps one of the fallouts of that is Imran Khan appearing so desperate to have talks with India?
Thank you, Zaka. I'd like to start on a good note, on a positive note. Firstly, Eid Mubarak to you, to the panelists and everyone who's watching. Secondly, quickly getting back to your question. First I think I'd like to pinpoint some certain facts which haven't been ascertained so far that I've heard this discussion or overheard you guys. Firstly, for the USA, you must have heard that yes, last year on the New Year's Eve, President Donald Trump tweeted against Pakistan, and they called out so-called bluffs, allegedly bluffs of Pakistan. But then again, just 1 year later, we've also seen President Trump actually mocking India for not spending enough in Afghanistan through the library that Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Modi,
I mean, the
said
two
he
doesn't
made.
compare.
Also, he said that he's keen to.
It's apples and
No,
oranges.
I'm trying to. I don't want to. No,
the language used in the tweet against Pakistan was, publicly berating a country that was a so-called, frontline state on the war on terror. Anyway, that's a wrong comparison. But go on.
President
Make your
Trump
substantive point.
also showed keenness. Thank you. President also showed keenness to meet the Pakistani leadership, and that also I think was a good omen. Also for the Chinese
last I checked, they haven't met Imran Khan and Trump.
Azhar.
Last I checked, Imran Khan and Trump have not met.
They have not met, but can you deny that President Trump expressed the willingness to meet the Pakistani leadership and the Pakistani?
It's going to be a year since Imran Khan came to office, and they haven't met. Anyway, again, not a substantive point. Get to your substantive point, please.
That's okay. That's for your viewer to decide if that's substantive or not. But I am here to make my points here.
Okay.
For China's veto that it has lifted on Masood Azhar, I think you, the viewers, your panelists, they're all well aware that it came without the conditions of Kashmir involving in it. And without Kashmir, I don't think Pakistan even had any objections to Masood Azhar being declared a global terrorist.
No,
Pakistan is cutting down its defense expenditure.
No, 1 second. Let's clarify this. This whole thing about, the Kashmir clauses being taken out from that resolution that was passed, and eventually Masood Azhar, the technical hold being vacated, and leading to his global blacklisting. Masood Azhar was never linked to the issue of Kashmir. For India, it was a question of blacklisting a man who was responsible for a number of terror attacks, including the parliament attack.
There is a very clear thing. Masood Azhar and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, more than the Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Contention was linking Masood Azhar to
No, it was not at all Kashmir. Anyway, let Ambassador Parthasarathy clarify.
Masood Azhar is equally viewed very seriously by the Afghans.
Yeah.
And they tell us that quite plainly, because Jaish and the Barelvis have quite a thing going inside Afghanistan. So there is no link between the two. What I'm just trying to say is that come what may, Pakistan must realize it is dealing with another type of Indian Prime Minister. We are not just going to, it's not just about not talking to them. We are going to keep them out of any regional cooperation in South Asia.
Yeah.
You've seen what has happened. It's moved to BIMSTEC. You've seen every other member of BIMSTEC and South Asia coming in. So we will keep the squeeze as long as terrorism goes. That squeeze will be augmented by what we do in the Financial Action Task Force. Don't forget the resolution by the Terrorism Committee in the UN. All members of the UN Security Council voted against it, with China finally coming on board. There was not one to back the Pakistani point of view. So I am not looking at this only in terms of this international reaction. We have leverages now we did not have in the past. You mentioned the IMF. We have an executive director who sits on the IMF. So the fact of the matter is,
nobody denies
as long as terrorism continues, two things. The factor is the squeeze not just on Masood Azhar and so on. There will be other squeezes which will go on. And also, I want to say this, that when we say no talks and terrorism can't go together, what we mean is that you can't have formal talks. Look, at the height of Kargil, I was talking to Sartaj Aziz.
Yeah.
You keep in touch, diplomats keep in touch. So we will be certainly engaging them behind the scenes. But the very clear message is, forget about...
At the highest level, there's going to be no...
There's going to, therefore, no serious
bilateral
discussions. But
dialogue.
let us see if we can improve the atmosphere further.
No,
that's as far as it
no,
goes.
the thing that stands out, I'm just coming to you, General. One second. But Mona, you know, the thing that Pakistan needs to realize is that, you know, any cosmetic action against Masood Azhar or a Hafiz Saeed not being allowed to speak on Eid at the big mosque in Lahore, those are cosmetic actions. That is not what, you know, what you're looking at. What you're looking at is an Indian Prime Minister who in 2014 invited the leader of your country along with all other SAARC countries, and he realized that that was a counterproductive move. So 5 years down, every other neighboring country is here for the swearing in except Pakistan. I mean, what this portends, Mona, and this is what you need to understand, this is what Pakistan needs to understand, is that Pakistan is at the risk of getting isolated from this entire South Asian region.
No, Zaka, if a seasoned diplomat on your panel is saying that you'll sideline Pakistan from all your regional engagements, that of course Pakistan is as well a huge part of, but doesn't that defies the very tweet that Narendra Modi ji did, quoting the Prime Minister's tweet, Imran Khan's tweet, and he said that he looks forward to a better region, to bettering peace in the region, and of course that was referring to Prime Minister Imran Khan's tweet.
The starting
so I don't think that's very doable.
Mona, the starting point for a better region, a better South Asia or a better subcontinent is the question of terror, is the question of Pakistan addressing terror. That's where we start from. If Pakistan tomorrow dismantles these terror camps and it shows, you know, substantial progress in many of these outstanding terror cases, of course India will be in every mood to talk.
I've not been in favor of the huge military budget that both Pakistan and India keep on spending for their deterrences or whatsoever, or offensives or defensives. The point is that it says a lot and it speaks volumes.
You know,
no.
These are
See, and I don't think that you can call
what the government does there.
May I answer the lady on defense budget? I just want to say this, that with a 6.5% to 7% rate of growth,
please take my response
we
as well.
spend 2.5% of GDP.
Yeah.
Your country is broke. You're running with a begging bowl around the world. And you're spending 3.5%, 4%. And we know how your soldiers and army lives. I've stayed over 5 years in your country. So let's be very, very clear.
Sir, you must
listen,
have come across the cover of India today.
One second. Ma'am, one second. Let him finish, please.
We don't bear any ill will towards the like of the present person speaking here. But let's be very, very clear. We will keep the heat on Pakistan, on its army, because your country is ruled by the army. You have a member of parliament, 2 members of parliament shot at falsely and arrested by the army. It is a violation of your constitution, and your prime minister won't say a word about it.
Yeah.
That is Pakistan.
Let me get Jen Prasad and Narendra Taneja back into this conversation. I think the larger point that we need to debate, the larger point that we need to debate is one second. The larger point. One second, Mona. The larger point.
Can we have a structured debate? Zaka, can we have a structured debate?
Narendra Taneja, the larger point which Mona and other Pakistanis seem to be missing is this. Today they are economically in a bankrupt situation, so much so they need an IMF bailout. Their most dependable ally, which used to be the United States, Donald Trump is publicly calling them out. China seems to be the only ally, but even on matters that are important to India when it comes to that axis, China seems to say, okay, we'll go with the consensus. 15 out of 15 members of the Security Council backed the resolution which blacklisted Masood Azhar. There is a increasing global isolation, certainly an isolation within this region, that's happening vis-a-vis Pakistan, and it is in Pakistan's interest to counter that. It is in Pakistan's interest to walk that extra mile to reassure countries in the region that, look, we don't want to be a pariah nation. We want to be part of this comity of nations. So Narendra Taneja, that larger picture is what people like Mona are missing.
No, there are two quick points here. First of all, India is not going to go by what they say. Can we have a civilized debate?
Go on.
You see, India is not going to go by what they say.
Okay.
We are going to go by what they do. It's very easy to tweet. What happens after that? Or make a statement, you know, or leak a report, or write an article, or a book. That does matter. The question is, we have to go by what they do, and there is no change. Pakistan under Imran Khan is the same as what Pakistan was 10 years ago. There is absolutely no change. Terror factories are there. In fact, now they have grown into terror universities. They've grown big. Second point I want to make is the emerging view, as far as my party is concerned, in the party, the general view which is emerging is Pakistan is not going to change. We have to deal with Pakistan. We have to prepare for a long haul. Pakistan will be the same even 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. We have to focus on building our economy, make India so big, so powerful, that they will be forced to rethink and revisit their India policy. Okay. Number two, modernize our armed forces. As far as we are concerned, we are building economy and armed forces because we have a global role to play. We are soon going to be the third largest economy in the world on nominal basis. That's our agenda. That's where we are focusing our energy. If Pakistan, they're just obsessed with India, they're obsessed with our side, and in the process they want to destroy themselves, it's up to them. But they have to walk the talk, and we will not go by what they say in this panel or elsewhere.
Okay.
We will go only by what they do.
General
and
Prasad,
there is no change in what Pakistan was 10 years ago,
okay.
What Pakistan is today.
General Prasad wanted to make a point. General Prasad, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make just two, three small points, Zaka.
Yeah.
Firstly, besides all the other points which our panelists have made, the bigger issue also is that the Pakistan army and the Pakistan Prime Minister is facing a lot of pressure on the line of control where the Indian army is dominating and is causing damage to them every single day in terms of whatever, fire assaults, etc., etc. The second fear is that while we have done Balakot, and if we continue to see these 45 to 50 terrorist camps across the border, maybe, I'm not saying anything, maybe some kind of action may be taken across the line of control also, in which case Pakistan would know where to go. Will they have to respond, or will they just keep quiet, or will they send another 24 aircraft into India like they did after Balakot? These are serious issues that Imran Khan is facing as a part of the strategic response that is unfolding itself. And the strategic response today is very clearly seen by everybody. Unless there is visible sign of dismantling terror camps, a visible sign of preventing this drug trade that is going on between India and Pakistan.
Okay.
The kind of drugs that are infiltrating in India. This is also another issue. You must have read in the newspapers today, even in Jammu region, drugs are being inducted by Pakistan and ruining a young population there. This must also stop. This is a part of terrorism that the Pakistanis have infiltrated. Today what happened in the Golden Temple? No, today what happened in the Golden Temple? 1 minute. Golden Temple again, Khalistan voice came up today. You heard it today. Who is starting all this? Where is this Khalistan leader sitting? In Pakistan. Do we see him being arrested? If Pakistan really wants to have peace with India, they must not only take action against him, but also against the Khalistan leader.
You know, the two things that we used to see in the past, one which we discussed about was every time, you know, there was a period of non-engagement at the highest level, certainly between India and Pakistan, you know, the Americans would intervene. Now we've outlined how Donald Trump is not interested in going down that road. The other thing that always used to happen was Pakistan would conveniently use Kashmir in international forums like the United Nations or other forums, saying, you know, look what's going on, there's human rights violations, there's an occupying army, but the Indian army, so on and so forth. But even on that count, is Pakistan losing out on a certain... Is it beginning to sound like a bit of a broken record now?
I mean, very true. In fact, in the US capital, there is hardly any sympathy for Pakistan's line on Jammu and Kashmir. It is discussed and presented, and it is always spoken of from the perspective of India, which is about cross-border terrorism and global Islamism. So, therefore, there is no sympathy for Pakistan's position on Kashmir. So, there is no question that Pakistan is under tremendous international pressure, and there is more that Pakistan needs to do before there could be a conducive environment for talks. All that I agree, but at the same time, I'll be much more guarded than the other panelists on this discussion have been about entirely dismissing Pakistan's leverage in the situation. So therefore, the same Trump administration, I would repeat the point that I earlier made, the same Trump administration also wants Pakistan to deal with the situation in Afghanistan. So therefore, when we talk about no terror, the terror and talks cannot go together, we will have to be also, I'm sure the government of India must be taking care of the possibility that 1 year down the line, how long it is sustainable and how far it will be a sustainable position. It is a valid argument that, okay, if India outgrows Pakistan exponentially, Pakistan will become entirely irrelevant in the overall scheme of things. But then how soon and how fast that will be, and whether India can actually continue with the policy of no talks at all.
But I think it's a valid point.
I think he has a valid point that yes, the Americans need sort of need Pakistani cooperation. But if Pakistan had granted that willingly, there would have been American goodwill to give them back something. They have, at least my understanding, talking to the Americans who deal with this, is that they're just getting fed up that Pakistan is playing the same game.
Let's put it this
way. So
Donald Trump. One second.
It does not. I do not expect any American pressure on us.
Even after Afghanistan. That aside, what I think the point that Varghese was trying to make is Donald Trump is up for re-election in 2020. The campaign for which has almost, I mean, it's already begun. It is important for him, from a domestic political constituency, that the residual American troops are also brought back from Afghanistan, and that can only happen if there is some form of a truce in Afghanistan. For that, you need the Taliban on the negotiating table, and for that to happen, the conventional wisdom was you need the Pakistanis.
No. The fact of the matter is Pakistan has a legitimate interest. They have Afghan refugees and so on. So you can't ignore that. But let us be very, very clear that equally there's a blowback in the United States. That we are out of combat in any case.
Okay.
The Afghans are doing the fighting. We are out of combat. So as long as we are there on a support role, they will continue.
Okay.
So that, I mean, this is something we worked out within the U.S. administration.
I'm going to wrap up, and I'll thank all our guests. But I think it's we have seen phases such as this in the India-Pakistan relationship in the past, where Indian governments have taken a hard position and said that, look, until you resolve the terror question, we're not going to head even an inch ahead. What has inevitably happened is either American pressure has come in, or Pakistan has gone to the United Nations, or used some form or some diplomatic tool to try and get India to come back to the negotiating table. We only hope that as far as this government is concerned, as far as this Narendra Modi 2.0 government is concerned, having learned from the mistake of inviting all SARC leaders, and now in the second term keeping Pakistan out and inviting BIMSTEC leaders, to not fall for the temptation or to be able to resist the pressure of coming back to the negotiating table just when you see that Pakistan is beginning to, even if it's cosmetically, beginning to act on this pressure, whether it's shutting down madrasas, whether it's putting people under house arrest, whether it's disallowing people like Hafiz Saeed to address large gatherings. I'm going to take a break on that note. When we come back, we'll have all the other domestic stories that have made the headlines this Thursday, including, of course, what's happening in Punjab, where the battle between Amrinder Singh and Navjot Singh Sidhu has now gotten onto another plane altogether. We'll tell you exactly what in just 2 minutes.